Well, India has launched the world's largest vaccination programme. In just 12 days, more than 12.3 million health workers have been given the jab. And in coming months, the Prime Minister says the country will meet its target to vaccinate 300 million senior citizens. Now, along with trying to protect a population of 1.3 billion people, Modi says efforts are also being made to help others.
By sending COVID vaccines to various countries and setting up infrastructure related to vaccination, India is saving the lives of the citizens of other countries also. And all at the WEF will be relieved to know that while so far only 2 made in India corona vaccines have been introduced to the world, in the near future many more such vaccines will be made available from India. These vaccines will help us in assisting countries across the world faster and on a much bigger scale.
The King of Jordan has also been talking about vaccines. He says the world has a moral duty to ensure that poor countries are not left at the end of the queue, and that safeguarding the health and well-being of refugees is imperative.
As the second highest number of refugees per capita globally, Jordan continues to protect refugees in its pandemic response. And we are among the first countries in the world to start vaccinating refugees for free. But international support is also essential. We must collectively work to develop new policy tools to help us address the problems of today and tomorrow.
So vaccinating the world very much front and centre. But day 4 of Davos really focused on the fourth industrial revolution, technology. Now, more than 50% of the world's population is now online, and 2/3 of us own a mobile device. Coronavirus has really accelerated digitization, with many now relying on technology to work from home or to access health and education services. The World Economic Forum says digital skills will be core to the jobs of the future. But COVID has also exposed a digital divide. A WEF report found that just 10% of households in low-income countries are fixed broadband subscribers. Now compare that to 70% in middle income and close to 90% in high-income countries. So all it did was outline a target of 75% for broadband access globally by 2025, ensuring that it costs no more than 2% of earnings. But the 20 billion or so connected devices on the planet are vulnerable to cybercrime. Cyber attacks were on the rise even before the pandemic. I mean, a cost from 2017 is $600 billion around the world. And now companies rank cybercrime as the 3rd most concerning COVID risk. Private sector data shows a 350% surge in phishing websites, and that's since the start of 2020. Now, when you hear the words artificial intelligence, I bet you think about robots, right? But the term covers a broad range of computer science, precision medicine, autonomous vehicles and drones. Those are all really fast-growing markets. And AI alone is expected to boost global growth by as much as 14% by 2030. The Deputy Chairman of Huawei Technologies has been speaking about how it can aid health.
With the AI support, now the doctors can build the CT scan in a much faster way. Before, an experienced doctor spent around 12 minutes to review a single CT scan, but now it takes just 2 minutes. So you can see that from 12 minutes to 2 minutes, this is a big saving on time. But for me, it is not just the saving on time, it's the saving of life. Because during the pandemic, AI will help us to, will help the doctors to spend more time on the patient.
And there's been also debate too around digital currencies. The market's been seeing a lot of volatility in the past month in particular, but with Wall Street giants, central banks and big tech companies considering their own digital assets, it might not be long before people start using crypto as a preferred method of payment. Now, China has been the front runner in the drive to create a bespoke digital currency, but there are legal, regulatory and operational challenges across territories. Sara Pantuliano is the Chief Executive of the Overseas Development Institute. Thanks ever so much for joining us. So what is it about the current financial system that you think doesn't really work?
there are many things that don't work, but there is one thing that concerns me in particular. It is very limiting for some of the poorest people in the poorest countries have a real problem in accessing financial services, in having access to credit or access even to banking, and even those who bank are often underbanked and don't get access to loans and other financial services. So there is a real problem of financial exclusion that I think digital currencies can help address. And there is a problem of cost because the fiat currencies are actually, really, the fiat currency system is very expensive, both for the financial services in terms of the logistics of, moving cash, but also for the consumers, particularly in remote rural areas. You need to access a bank, you need to access a brick and mortar sort of a building somewhere that will, sort of impact on your ability to bank, to have access, to financial services. So I think there is great potential in digital services, in digital currencies to offer a faster, cheaper services to help create a credit history for people, to give them a financial identity for those who don't have it.
So what about collaborating across borders? Now we know that China is the front runner in this drive to create a digital currency. It's a long way off, but where could the benefits come from?
Well, this is a space that's been very much, developed, created, innovated by the private sector. So the central banks are, very much playing catch-up. But it's also true that we see the central banks of middle and low-income countries being particularly keen to advance, progress for two reasons. One, because of financial inclusion, as I was saying, for some that is an issue at the country level, like in the Marshall Islands. They are at the risk of sort of losing any access to financial services because the only bank that is present in the country is finding that too expensive. So, they are creating this Marshallese sovereign sort of a central bank digital currency built on blockchain technology to make sure that they continue to provide financial services to its citizens. But there is an issue also of breaking the hegemony of stable coins, of particularly of the US dollars. So there is an element of competition there. We're seeing very much discussed. It's a political issue, it's not just technological.
Increase in interest and the speed at which it's happening in digital currencies change that?
Yeah, that is the potential, very much so. The issue is how the regulation is brought forward, what kind of regulation we're going to see. There is undoubtedly the need for a level of regulation. You were in the program talking about issues around, cybersecurity. Obviously, there are issues around, privacy data, around potential illicit transfers. So it is a space that needs an element of regulation. But regulation will have to be creative. We'll have to, make sure that harnesses the potential of this technology and doesn't close the space for financial inclusion, which is really what this technology can offer, this innovation can offer. So it's just not using the banking regulations that we have in place. Otherwise, of course, it will not change very much.
So creative regulation is what we need. Well, Sara Pantiliano, thank you very much. Well, rebuilding the world after the pandemic has been discussed very much this week, but has the construction industry been slow to take advantage of technological advances? Angelico Donati is the CEO of Donati Immobiliare Group, which specialises in building, development and construction. And I asked her what the fourth industrial revolution means to her.
It's innovation and digitalization across the board, across sectors. I work in the construction industry, so for us, it's a big leap forward if we manage to implement it, because as you will know, construction is one of the least technological industries globally. Over the past 50 years, it's been one of the industries across the world which has invested least in R&D, and that has also shown up in very low growth figures. So I hope that this will be the right time to kickstart change and innovate in our sector.
Well, your business took part in building a university campus. So how does digital innovation play a part in projects like that?
It can play a huge role. Obviously, when we talk about tech and innovation in the construction space, we're not talking about replacing workers with robots or anything like that anytime soon, if not ever. But we can talk about using digital processes to make the construction management aspect of things more effective, more efficient, and obviously the long-term ultimate goal is to try and industrialize the process, to invest in prefabrication and modularization, to try and standardize something which has historically always been extremely bespoke, to make it more repeatable, and by making it more repeatable, make it faster and more efficient.
A big focus of Davos' agenda has been looking beyond the pandemic, once we've moved through it, and maybe resetting business models, building back better. So where would you start?
There's only one place to start, which is also where we want to end up, which is with being more sustainable in our business practices. It's a sadly known fact that buildings and construction make up almost 40% of CO2 emissions globally. We know that urban populations are rising. We expect there to be a mass migration into cities. Despite COVID, I don't think that will change. And as we build more and more, as our urban environment becomes denser and denser, we cannot not think about sustainability and about conservation.
You talk about the construction industry having a massive role to play in building back better, but there's the pace of digital innovation and technology is getting faster and faster. Is it moving too fast, or can you keep up the pace?
I don't think it's ever too fast, especially not for sectors such as construction, but also real estate, which historically were not very innovative. I think the coronavirus pandemic has given these industries the boost they needed to change the way they did things, because as we know, when you're making money hand over fist, as real estate did for decades, there isn't much incentive to change. But now, when faced with new problems, these industries are having to find new solutions, and as long as these solutions help them be more effective, more sustainable, these industries are having to find new solutions.